Morning, Team Flynn. Welcome in. Thank you so much for joining me today. Quaranteam, if you're watching the replay, use the hashtag Team Replay in the comments. If you're with me live right now, say hello. Hook me up with a thumbs up. Say hello to your friends here, and I hope you're having an amazing day. As a reminder, on Wednesdays, we start a half hour earlier, and ironically, we are talking today about mastermind groups. What are they? How are they structured? How do you find people to join a group with? Why is this something that we should definitely be focusing on? And the reason why this is ironic today is because the reason why we start a half hour earlier on Wednesdays, this is day 125, by the way, straight of the income stream. The reason why Wednesdays we start a half hour earlier is because I have a mastermind call at 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. So we push things back a half hour, but normally we're here 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. Anyway, welcome in everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much. Let's enjoy the show and learn all about mastermind groups.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream, all while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
All right. Yo, what happened here? There we go. So welcome. What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you. We have Bella in the house. What's up, Bella? We have Elton. What's up, Elton? Great to see you here. Good morning, Pat, says Chris. Always a great shirt choice. Thank you. Social distancing champion. I'm not the champion, but Sasquatch is indeed the champion there. Morning, living joyful and well. Great to see you. Happy Wednesday, Stacy. Thank you so much. Michael says hump day. Indeed it is. Wednesday is that. Martin says, Pat Flynn, good morning, Pat. Thanks for 125 days of incredible content. You're welcome. You know, I'm happy to do this. In fact, when this started 125 days ago, I didn't know it was going to go for this long. I don't think any of us knew that the things happening in the world were going to go on for this long. But here we are, and I'm going to stick around, and I'm going to be here for you. And so every morning, 7 days a week. It's kind of crazy, but it gets me up. It gets me excited. I always come out of these calls also with a lot of excitement and passion and emotion and also energy to move into the next part of my day. And again, I just appreciate you so much. So again, today we are talking about mastermind groups. Mastermind groups has been a really important part of my own history. But let me first talk about why mastermind groups are something we should definitely be paying attention to. So mastermind groups are essentially formalized groups of people. They can be anywhere between 2 or more. I've seen mastermind groups go up to dozens and even hundreds of people, although in my opinion, I don't really classify that as a formal mastermind group like we're talking about here, because a mastermind group is a tight-knit group of people. Essentially, if you think about it like King Arthur, right? Knights of the Round Table. It's a round table because no one person is at the head of the table. We're all equals, and everybody has the ability to help each other. And that's what a mastermind group is formed for. Even if it's just one other person, you're there to help each other. And the way that it's formatted, the way that it's structured allows for learning, for brainstorming, and for really high level impact for each individual at certain times to occur. And we'll be talking about how these things are structured, how they're formalized, how often they happen, what the actual mastermind meetings might be like. Now, the cool thing about a mastermind is it's really your own. You can actually create your own if you'd like, or you can find one that already exists and you can insert yourself into it. But these are important, and they're so important to me that when you think about like the structure and the level and the care that I have for certain people in my life, like just this is me in particular, and this is how a lot of people treat their mastermind groups. In fact, when I first heard about mastermind groups, I was like, really, this is a thing? Like, it sounds a little, I don't know, cultish, if you will. It sounds kind of, I don't know, made up. But once I started to be a part of them in 2008, I started to see the benefits from them for my own self and for the others who were involved quite quickly. But yeah, so that was back in 2008. But these things are absolutely key. So when it comes to the sort of importance of people in my life, you know, I've God and my family up top. And then right below that, my mastermind members, the people who are in my mastermind groups. Then below that are like my best friends and my friends. And then below that, you know, that it just keeps going. But that's how high level and high up they are. And it's because I know they treat me the same exact way. And because of that, we can be brutally honest with each other. And that brutal honesty is key when it comes to growth and success. We can show up for each other. We can read each other's labels because we're all each outside of each other's bottles, right? It's hard to read our own label when we are inside the bottle and we're so deep into our own work. Sometimes to get this perspective from the outside is, this, it's absolutely key. Now imagine that in a formal structure consistently for years, having somebody who sort of grows with you and knows exactly where you're at, and you kind of help each other out. It's sort of a win for win. I've been a part of several different groups, many of which have started and then disbanded, but there are two in particular that I've been a part of, one for over 8 years now, weekly, meaning that's the one that actually meets on Wednesdays. We meet weekly every Wednesday. It's literally every Wednesday. For 8 years, we've met for 1 hour every Wednesday. And the other group I've been a part of for now over a decade. That started in 2009, 2010. And that one in particular also meets weekly, but that's on Monday, right? That's on Monday. So anyway, these things, absolutely important parts of my life. And I guarantee I would not be where I am today if it weren't for the members of my mastermind group. There have been times when I've gone through some really tough life situations where the members of my mastermind groups have actually stepped up to help and even just be a shoulder to cry on, but most of all, offer their own advice, to coach me through certain situations in my business. There was one particular call that was really important that determined the name of my book. That's all that one particular call was about. I've had calls related to where I wanted to go in business and to help me redirect after a tough sort of failure in my business. These sorts of things are very common. The ones that disbanded, this is a common question. Hey, Pat, you said you were in many. Why are these two ones that sort of lasted throughout the years? What happened to the other ones? There was one group in particular that I met in person with about a month at a time. So it was once a month, and it was because it was in person. But we met once a month for about 4 hours at a time. And the idea was we were going to meet with each other consistently and each have our own time within each of those meetings, right? So there's these things in these masterminds called hot seats. And this is a typical format for a mastermind group, is where you have one person essentially be the focus person at that time. And that person gets to present a problem or present an idea or ask for a particular opinion of a kind. And that allows for the rest of the group to all focus on that one person. In this 4-hour one, we did the same thing, except we covered, I think, 4 people at a time. So each person had 1 hour every month versus 1 hour a week for 4 people. And that way we could rotate the same amount of time anyway. Well, we ended up hosting these mastermind meetings with each other at a local here in San Diego frisbee golf, disc golf place. And so the idea was we were going to have some recreation while also meeting. And we always ended up just chatting and having fun. And it was a good time, but it was less business, more play. And because it wasn't formalized, it was formalized in the sense of, okay, every hour a person gets some time, but what the expectation was. And because we just didn't have that sort of relationship yet, it never really turned into anything. And then one person moved away and that sort of stuff kind of happened. So yes, frisbee golf was really cool, but that particular one disbanded. It's one of those things that you have to have a sense that everybody in the group takes it seriously. If you don't take it seriously, it's not going to work out for anybody, right? So that's sort of my history with mastermind groups. And again, there's been many more that I've sort of been a part of and then have left. Sometimes because there just wasn't a good vibe with the other members. Other times because I felt like I was a little bit too advanced for the other members of the group, where I essentially felt like I was just being asked questions all the time and I wasn't really getting anything back in return to help me grow and move on to the next level. That happened one time. And then the opposite end happened once, where I felt like I was just not contributing anything because I was with extremely high level people and I was not able to feel like, and that was my own decision to remove myself from that group because I just felt like I was taking. And then when it was sort of my turn or to offer advice, I really had nothing new or insightful to offer. Now that's probably not as true as I thought it was, but I just didn't feel that vibe again for that reason. So then I left that particular group. Anyway, we're talking about mastermind groups today, y'all. Mastermind groups, and we're going to be talking a little bit about some aspects of these mastermind groups as we go along here. Then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. But let me really quick just go over the idea of free versus paid. This is another common question I always get about mastermind groups. There are mastermind groups, and in fact, the two that I'm in now, the one that I've been in for 8 years, and then the other one, 8 years, and the other one I've been in for 10 years. These are both free, meaning there is no fee to be a part of that. These are just moments of time that we put aside every single week for each other, and we're serious about it, we're brutally honest with each other, and we just try to remain as consistent as possible, but there is no fee. There are, however, mastermind groups that you can join that are indeed paid, where there's like a leader, and this person requires a certain amount of money to be a part of it. And so long as you continue to pay, you continue to get access to that particular group. And these are also popular because a lot of authority leaders and influencers have the ability to generate more income by sort of facilitating these meetings and bringing people together. And many times that person is also part of that group, and many times that person's not a part of that group. They just so happen to have the community where they're able to bring people together, and they provide the resources and the structure, and that payment also qualifies people and puts people into a bucket where, okay, well, these people are serious, right? That's one reason why a paid mastermind group can be very beneficial. You might one day potentially create a paid mastermind group where there's a fee. There's essentially like a membership fee to be a part of it, such that you know that people who are willing to invest that amount of money are going to be serious about it, who are willing to put their time into it because they have some skin in the game. That's one of the issues with a free mastermind, is when you offer one of these or you become a part of it, well, there's no really consequence for leaving, or at least on the surface there isn't monetarily. For me, it would be absolutely consequential if I were to leave the mastermind groups that I'm in now, because this is 8 to 10 years of baked in relationship building, baked in these people know exactly what my business is, know exactly how I react, know exactly how I can improve, and it would behoove me not to do what I can to be a part of this. Therefore, I then contribute as much as I can to these other people, knowing that I'll get some stuff back, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about now frequency. So we've talked about ones that meet weekly. This is a very common structure for mastermind groups, weekly, and that's 1 hour a week, right? There's ones that meet monthly, and those are usually, hold on. Oops, I totally screwed that up. Weekly or monthly, and these go for more than an hour typically. Unless it's one person, then it may make sense to have those monthly meetings be a little bit longer so that everybody has a chance to be in the hot seat, because that's really the big draw here. And the biggest moment for you within these groups are the hot seat, where all eyes, all ears, all focus, all brain power is on you. Because as we know, and this is the power of the mastermind group, one brain, great. 2 brains, awesome. Even more, even better, right? When you have people with different experiences, with different angles, with different abilities, with different stories and histories coming together for you, it can be some amazing magic that can happen, right? So let's talk a little bit more about the structure of this, and we'll talk about some of the rules and the formatting and whatnot. But let's go into number of members. The ideal number of members that I would recommend is 5 or less. Obviously, at least 2. And the reason 5 or less is because if it gets any more than that, it takes a while for the rotation to come back around to you. And it doesn't, oftentimes when there's larger groups, there's going to be people who are perhaps a little bit more quiet, who are going to just sit on the sidelines, and that's kind of okay. But we want participation, right? That's really key. Participation from all parties is absolutely key. And because there's less people, i.e., 5 people in a mastermind group, you'll find that people are more likely to talk, or if there is a sort of moderator, and again, we'll talk about how indeed these meetings are structured. The moderator is important because that person can call on a person who may have been a little bit quiet during a call, and this again allows for people who maybe are just kind of sitting on the sidelines watching to still feel like they need to participate, and also they often have a lot of great value to share. Now, where do these meetings happen? I had mentioned that I had done them in person. In person is something that obviously is a little bit more difficult to do right now, but these work out really well because you get that, in-person connection, and there's a sense of a vibe when people are together in person with each other. This is why we go to events, but in-person meetings are great. The trouble is having everybody go to the same spot consistently every week or every month is tough, right? Getting people to drive and to spend that time. I mean, plus when you drive there, it's not just the hour call or the 2 hours session that you're going to be involved with. It's the drive there, the drive back, and the, getting the babysitter and all this kind of stuff. Like it's a lot of friction to meet in person. Therefore, I believe that even more powerful is the online. The online meetings are great because, and this can happen. I mean, I've done online meetings on Skype before. Obviously, Zoom is a thing now. Freeconferencecall.com. That's one of the groups that I'm in. Freeconferencecall.com. That's not how you spell it, by the way, but freeconferencecall.com, or even FaceTime. And literally putting in the schedule is going to be really key. But virtually and online can be really great. And so again, these are meeting platforms where you can meet with each other. And then a online sort of forum component can go one additional step. In each of my groups that I'm in now, one of them, the one that I use, the one that where we meet on Zoom. And the nice thing about Zoom is I can call in. A lot of times I call in on the phone because I'm either doing house chores or I'm on the go, but I can still be there and listen in and participate in these conversations. Or we can be there on video with each other. But when it comes to these calls, again, just having it be more easily accessible is great. Then the other thing about this is it allows you to understand that, okay, it's a lot easier. It's just going to be that hour, and then you can schedule something in right after that. So it's much easier to bake it in to your schedule and just have it be on repeat, right? Repeat on your calendar. Excuse me. I'm trying to be less noisy when I sip coffee. I've had a few people call me out on that. This is great. From My Castle Life, I feel mastermind groups can really help build self-confidence, connections, and a feeling of self-worth. Indeed, especially if you get with a group of people who are there to support you, that's really great. But support comes in many different ways, right? Support doesn't just come from, and in fact, you don't want people who are just going to be your cheerleaders, right? You want people who are going to be your cheerleaders, but you also want people who are going to be there to be brutally honest with you when you need to hear that feedback, right? Hey, Pat, that project you're working on, I don't think that fits into your overall mission. I think that you're just distracted. Is that true? Somebody asked me that one time, and it made me think, and we had a discussion about it, and that was really important, and I really love that. So that honesty is more important than just having cheerleaders. But all in all, that's going to help you, and this is the safe place for us to do this because we can vibe with each other, right? We can vibe with each other, and again, you build these relationships over time. It takes some time for the mastermind group to get to the point where you're comfortable sort of sharing, expressing, and what happens in the mastermind group stays in the mastermind group, right? That's there's like some unsaid, unwritten code and ethics within mastermind groups, right? Because they're so formal, because they're so important, we have to understand that there's certain rules that we need to follow. For example, if somebody mentions something that is sort of secretive or perhaps a little bit more personal, that stays in the mastermind group, right? There's a code of conduct. We do not share that without permission, right? Without permission. Number two, we have in our mastermind groups a rule where if you don't show up every time, minus in case of emergencies, or yes, you can have maybe one mulligan, then you're out, right? We have to create these rules. Because if it is something that's sort of more lax, more casual, then it's not going to work, right? These are more formalized. And so you can create rules like that if you create your own groups. However, you'll have to notice that there are likely going to be rules like that if you get into other people's groups too, if that makes sense. What's said in the group stays in the group. All right, there was a question here from Erica. Should you have the people in the group all in the same industry, i.e. travel agents for me or different industries? This is great. And I wanted to talk about sort of the people in your group ideally so that you can understand which groups you might want to be a part of if they already exist, and or the groups that you can start and who you might reach out to, right? So let's talk about this. It's been nice to bring the iPad back, by the way, so I can write for you. So if you consider yourself, just let's say, for example, there's a scale of 1 to 10. And this scale is in relation to like your knowledge, your experience, your expertise, etc. Right? Let's just say that you are a 5. No matter where you're at. Like, I'm not saying you know half as much as other people or anything. I'm just saying you put yourself at a 5. That's you. You want other members of your group to be in the 3 to essentially 7 range. And again, of knowledge, experience, and expertise, where you have the ability to connect with people sort of within this range. Because if you get the 1s and 2s in there, these people, they're not going to really be able to contribute to your success, right? And it's going to make you feel like you're just a knowledge base for them, and they don't have anything to essentially offer back to you. And then at the same time, the 8s, 9s, and 10s, they might be at a completely different range or level than you, where you wouldn't have anything to really contribute to their growth and success. So I would say 3 to 7, 3 to 8 is really where you want to live in terms of the level of people in your group. They don't have to be at the exact same level. Some who are in the groups that I'm in don't make as much money from me, if that's important to you, or have as many subscribers. There are some who have way more. But that's not what's important. What's important is that the knowledge and the care for each other is sort of aligned, as well as we can all contribute to each other's success. So that's the sort of first point when it comes to the people that are in your group. Now, let's talk about, should they be in the same industry? Let me tell you a quick story. I had a person in one of my groups once who had to leave because he moved and changed positions. But anyway, he was a sword swallower. This was his work. He was a sword swallower. And he was in one of my mastermind groups. He was somebody who had an online presence to help him grow his entertainment business. He was a sword swallower. He was a hypnotist. He would go and do a lot of, like at the end of the year, schools would sort of rent entertainers and they would hypnotize the class and it would be really fun. And he was an entertainer. Now you might think, okay, Pat, what business do you have being in a mastermind group? Like, what does that person potentially have to offer you? Like, I understand, Pat, you might be able to help this person grow their online presence and help them with their social media accounts and help them build their connections and relationships. But what could this person possibly do for you? In fact, this person was one of the most valuable people that I've ever come across. When I started speaking on stages, can you imagine just how much value he had to share, having spoken on stage for his entire life? To be able to share with me, somebody who was just getting on stage for the first time, what it was like to book presentations, what it was like to get up on stage and engage an audience and keep them interested, what it was like to insert comedy into a talk when I don't feel like I'm funny at all. When it comes to stage presence and using your voice and creating a very compelling story on stage. Well, this person was the most valuable person to me during that time. And of course, I was able to help him grow his business and start something on the side too. So no, I don't believe that you should all be in the same industry. Now, that being said, there are mastermind groups that are still successful. I know that, for example, the FinCon community, Financial Blogger Conference community, they have a number of people who, as a result of meeting in person at these events that they held every year, there's people who have formed mastermind groups who, yes, they're in the same quote unquote industry, finance, but they all have different specialties, right? And they come together to be able to help each other. However, I would preference and I would recommend that we try to get together with people who are not in the same industry, who can offer different advice from different places and different angles, right? And I found that there's some very valuable advice from learning from people who are in completely different industries, because then I can go, whoa, that's incredible. I didn't know that was a thing. How might I be able to get inspiration and adopt something similar? And then vice versa. And now we can sort of grow together versus sort of being stuck in this hole of one particular industry and not really having any expertise or outside knowledge come in and infiltrate that, if that makes sense. So that's really key. Thank you for that question. Hey, Lowell, great to see you here. Thanks for everybody who's coming in now. We started early today because I have a mastermind group meeting happening in a half hour. And it's ironic because today we're talking about mastermind groups. And we're at the section where we're talking about kind of who is going to be in these groups. So again, up to 5 people, 5 or 6 people max, right? And the reason is because we want to be able to have that rotation for those hot seats. And I'll talk about the format of a particular meeting or call right following this recap. But when you have 5 to 6 people, you're able to rotate and get into the hot seat enough and as often as required for you to have everybody else know and be reminded of where you were and keep it growing and keep it going forward. When you have a group of 8, 10 people, it's like it might take 2-3 months before it's your turn again, and you just feel like you've just been contributing to other people's success, which is what you're supposed to do, without receiving anything back in return, right? But yes, in addition, I had skipped over this earlier. When it comes to these mastermind groups, in addition to the online meeting or the in-person meeting that happens during that time, there's also the ability for you to create an online forum component, such as a Facebook group, or one of them that I'm in also has a base camp. Essentially just an online forum for us to either ask questions in between calls or to stay connected or share some valuable things. That's the other thing about these mastermind groups. It's not just about taking from each other. It's about giving to each other. So sometimes these mastermind groups, a person will be in the hot seat and they actually do a full-on presentation about something that they just recently did that they feel would be beneficial for the rest of the group too, right? And there's that understanding that that can happen sometimes as well, which is really neat. I think the most valuable thing is just now over time, after 8-10 years of being with these people are like family to me, right? I can rely on them. If something were to happen in my life, I can imagine all of them being there without a doubt, right? And me, I will be there for them as well. So this is why it's key. So let's talk about the hot seat. Let's talk about the hot seat. What is the hot seat? A hot seat is a moment during these meetings where you or one person is the focus, the hot seat, right? So this is fire, by the way. Hot seat. The hot seat. Chair on fire. Hot seat. That's terrible. Okay, so the hot seat. One person, so let's say the call is 1 hour, once a week. Every week, one person is the dedicated person that's in the hot seat, right? All focus on that person. The call is structured like this. We typically spend, and this is both of my groups that have been here for 8 to 10 years, this is how they're formalized. The first 10 minutes, we go around the horn, and everybody shares a win. So number 1, a win. A win from the previous week. And that goes for about 10 minutes. Then, number 2 is the hot seat, where the person who knew ahead of time that they were going to be in the hot seat, and there's a rotation, right? We cycle through people every week, and then it comes back to you. So there's a hot seat, it rotates, and that goes for 40 minutes. They have imagine 40 minutes of time, once a month essentially, if you have about 4 people in the group, to have all eyes, all ears on you, to help you see things from other positions and angles, to help you move forward with whatever problem or pain that you might have. If you happen to be coming in the room right now, and if you've enjoyed any of this so far, make sure you hit that thumbs up. That helps with the algorithm and helps me stay energized moving forward. And then number 3, we just share goals. Essentially just around the horn, what are the big items, goals for next week? 10 minutes. 10 minutes of that. So, of course, 10 plus 40 plus 10 is 1 hour. And that's typically how it's structured. But let's talk about the hot seat in particular. Right? Oops. Don't want to... Okay. So, wait, am I drawing in a hidden layer again? There we go. So let's talk about this hot seat. When you are in the hot seat, it's really important that you think about what you want to come out of that time with. Absolutely key. Too often in a lot of groups, especially ones that have disbanded, is where people go, oh, crap, I'm in the hot seat today. Let's just, okay, well, I guess we'll talk about this. That's such a waste of time, not just your time, and it's such a waste of an opportunity for you, but it's a waste of everybody else's time as well, right? So when you come into these hot seats, if you are in the hot seat, it's really important that you come in with an idea of what you want to come out with. What are the biggest pains and or problems or necessities or needs, or what might you need everybody's opinion about right now? If you can't find anything, if there is really nothing that you need help with, A, you might not be thinking hard enough because there's always things that we can improve on and get help with. But B, well, then it might be a good idea to then turn around and present something. If everything is working out so well, awesome. Then let's present something to the rest of the group, still provide value to them during that time, such that the next time it comes around, you might have a need and you'll be able to receive that value back, right? So really important to think, like, I cannot stress that enough. This is the most common problem in mastermind groups is, well, okay, I guess I don't know, what am I gonna be talking about today? For example, last week on Wednesday, I had a call with my mastermind group, and that was all about memberships because I was launching SPI Pro, and specifically how to keep members engaged over time. It's really exciting to get people into a membership group initially, and for the first several months, just being there is good enough. But what happens 3 months down the road when people are like, okay, well, what's something new? How can I, remain excited? I was excited when I signed up, but what about now? And that's all that conversation was about. And I had people who had mastermind groups share. I had people who were not in mastermind groups share their opinion. I showed a little bit about the back end of Circle, which is the membership platform that we're using. And they got some really good ideas and they shared a lot of great advice. They even asked a lot of questions. And it was just an all around amazing and super valuable conversation that I literally would have paid thousands of dollars for because I got that much value in return, because the information I got is going to eventually lead to thousands of dollars more in return. But of course, these groups are free, but we pay with our time and attention to other people in the group, right? That's essentially our currency, is how much value can we provide to each other. Okay. In addition to these hot seats, it's really important to, if you start a new mastermind group or if you are a new member of an existing mastermind group, this is really key. It's really important for you to understand how do you best like to receive help. You need to know this so that you can relay this to the other members of your group. Every member should tell other members at some point here how you best like to receive help. Some people like to receive help in a more boot camp sergeant military kind of style, where if you are slacking, you prefer to have people kick your butt, to call you out, and to essentially motivate you by calling you out in that sort of very aggressive way. That a lot of people actually want that. And in some of my groups, that's actually how people prefer. So now me knowing that about somebody, hey Archer, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate you. Knowing that about somebody, I am better able to be equipped to serve them, because then I can call them out instead of just sort of nonchalant, just sort of suggest something, because that's how I know they prefer to learn and get motivated. They prefer that sort of style. Me, I don't like that. If somebody gets aggressive with me like that, I feel bad. I feel like a loser. I feel deflated, and that would actually work against me. So it's really important for me to relay to the other members of my group how I prefer to get motivated and how I prefer to receive that feedback, right? What helps me are the rewards on the other end, right? So, hey, I do this work, I figure out these tough situations. Hey, remembering why I'm doing this and what's on the other end of this, that's what's motivating to me. So now when I receive feedback, especially if times are tough, a person might now frame that. Another person in my mastermind group might frame that as, hey, you know what? I know times are tough now, but remember what's on the other end here. When you get through this, this is going to happen for you. You're going to have this, and your audience is going to have access to this now, so it's worth fighting through. So let's talk this through. And of course, now I'm more motivated to do that, right? I'm motivated personally by reward and how people will feel on the other end. I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. If you happen to know your Enneagram number, shout it out in the chat right now. Or if you're watching the replay, team replay, you can put in your number too. I'm just curious. But I'm a 3, and I get and feel value when I'm helping others, right? I think that's why I've done this for 125 days straight. It definitely fits and aligns with who I am as a person, and how I feel self-worth is by helping other people. That legit is what it is, and getting recognition for that. There's positive and negative sides to any Enneagram number and any personality, right? That also can work against me, because I can potentially sometimes say things to please people and not follow through because I just want to be recognized and get recognition. But then if I talk too much, then not follow up, then that can obviously not be good too. So Tim is a 3. We got Living Joyful and Well is a 3. Gabriella is a 7, which is awesome. I'm a 5, says George. You're an observer. That's great. I'm a 4. I'm trying to remember what who a 4 is. My wife is a 6. Keisha is a 2. Yeah. Anyway, these are interesting. If you don't know what we're talking about the Enneagram, and in fact, understanding yourself and how you prefer to receive feedback. Remember, how do you prefer to receive help is really important to relay to the other members of the group. That way we can all help each other, right? And over time, you just kind of know this about a person, like you would know about a friend, and you would say or not say certain things in certain ways to best help that person, if that makes sense. So just keep that in mind. It's interesting. There's a lot of 7s, a lot of 3s, and a lot of 5s here, I've noticed. But that's every number is great. Every number is absolutely great. There's pros and cons to each, obviously. So how do you best like to receive help? Share that, relay that. Another fun thing, if you've been a part of a mastermind group before, we did this recently and it was really neat. We wanted to change it up one time, and so we heard this idea from another mastermind group and we wanted to try it out. And that is the idea of, okay, let's, for a trial run, have our hot seat, in fact, be a time where we're not there and the other group members are now talking amongst each other about what they feel you could do better, or what you could do next, or where the biggest struggles are from the outside. This is when you talk about getting people to read the label outside the bottle because you can't do it yourself because you're inside. This is the ultimate version of that. So let me just give you an example. I'm in the hot seat, but guess what? I'm not even going to show up to the call. But the group members talk amongst each other about me and about what's working, about potentially from their point of view where the struggles might be, whether it's true or not. That's how they're perceiving it, right? And what I could do to level up. That call is then recorded, and then I listen to it. And I got to tell you, it's probably the most valuable audio content I've ever heard in my life. It trumps any podcast episode, any YouTube video that I've seen. When you have people who care about you, who are speaking amongst each other, and you hear their voices, you hear the realness behind what they feel about you and where you're at and what you could do and the possibilities, and perhaps getting into a little bit of your psyche and calling you out for not being able to fight through these struggles that you might be having. I mean, gee whiz. And of course, we did that for every group member. And yes, it was definitely a little terrifying, but something that was really amazing. Now, for those of you who are coming in new, because we are sort of now at the regular starting time for our calls here, on Wednesdays, I start a half hour earlier because I have a mastermind call at the half hour mark here, which will happen in about 20 minutes now. A mastermind group is a formalized group of people that you continually meet with regularly, where you help each other out. You're there almost like a Knights of the Round Table. Nobody's at the head of the table. And every week, a person is in the hot seat, and you are in the spotlight that week where you can get help and service and get views and get not views and exposure, but you get another person's angle on what it is that you're working on, and it helps ultimately you grow your business or help you in your personal life. I've gotten so much personal help in my even in my marriage as a result of people who I've connected with in my mastermind group, right? And so this becomes a way for you to provide value to others and in exchange get value back with people that you absolutely trust, and that's great. So yeah, that's that style that I was talking about where you're not in the room and people are talking about you worked out really well. And a little terrifying for sure, but very eye-opening, right? When you hear other people that you trust and that you care about talk about you in that way, man, it really makes an impact. So that could be something worth experimenting with. If you happen to be in a group, you can try that out. One thing that we do every year, at the beginning of every year, is we do what's called a goal teardown, where we share with each other very, very much in detail. We take a hot seat moment that we would have normally had to ask questions, to present what our goals are for the rest of the year. And this is important to do at the beginning of every year because it allows the other group members to understand where you want to go and what's important to you. And it also allows for other group members to ask for clarification. Remember, you might know what these things are about or think you know what these things are about that you're writing down, that your goals are. When you have other people go, well, what do you mean by that? Or, hey, you said you want to grow your email list, but like, what does that mean to you? How many emails and by when? Oh, I never really thought about that. Well, let's talk about that, right? So now you can even have these other group members help formulate and formalize the goals that you have. And because they're a part of that process with you, like you are with them, you can now hold each other accountable, right? So what we'll do is quarterly, we'll check in with each other on our goals. We actually write them down. We publish them in our Basecamp or our Facebook group so that we're reminded, so that when we're on a call, often, I mean, this happens a lot, y'all. This happens a lot. It'll be mid-year and a person's talking in their hot seat about some new idea that they have, and we're talking about it. And one person will go, hey, I'm in the Facebook group looking at your goals that we talked about in the beginning of the year because I don't remember talking about something like this, and it doesn't align with where you said you wanted to be. Can you talk more a little bit about how this fits into your goals, or have you pivoted, and do we need to sort of recap our goals for the year? And then we find out sometimes that, well, it's just a distraction. A person had a hard time with their goals and then found this new bright, shiny object, and now we can uncover and develop that, which is pretty cool. Or this person goes, well, you know what? I tried that, it didn't work, and so now I've pivoted, and this is the new thing. And so let's actually update the goal sheet to talk more about these kinds of things for the rest of the year, which is pretty cool. So that's worked out really well. And another thing that can be done amongst the normal sort of rotation of hot seats and people who are in there. Now, there's another thing I want to talk about with relation to these weekly calls, and that is the idea of a moderator and how important this person is. A moderator for the group. The way that we structure it is the moderator is the person who was in the hot seat last week. This just makes it really easy, right? So the moderator for a call is the person who is in the hot seat the week prior. And the moderator's job is to just lead the conversation, right? So the moderator will go, okay, guys, everybody's here. Let's get started. Let's go around the horn and share wins for the day. Remember, we talk 10 minutes for wins, 40 minutes for hot seat, 10 minutes for goals. The moderator will go, okay, Jamie, what are your wins for the week? And then Jamie will go. And then if Jamie talks too much, the moderator will go, that's all, like, let's talk a little bit more about that later, but I want to move on so that Jim gets his hot seat time. So Amy, really quick, how, what are your wins for the week? What have you accomplished that you'd like to share? And then, the moderator will share as well. And then, all right, Jim, you're in the hot seat. What can we do to best help you? Where do you ultimately want to end up at the end of this call? And then Jim will go, he'll have the hot seat. Essentially, he takes the floor during that time. And the moderator, during the hot seat, could feel a little bit more empowered to ask maybe deeper questions or even redirect who should be answering questions during a certain time, right? So a moderator during a call might go, hey, Janice, I noticed that you haven't really spoken about anything yet. Anything come to mind, or how are you processing this right now for Jim, right? And then the moderator will sort of, call on people who maybe are a little bit more quiet so that we get their opinion as well. Not because, it's not scary like a teacher calling on a kid who's just quiet in the back of class. It's like we're all here for a reason, and a person may just be so enticed and excited or enthralled with a particular person's story and that they forget to actually offer advice. So the moderator can help with that. And then the moderator will go, okay, well, we have about 5 minutes left until the end of the hot seat, and then we definitely want to end the call on a high note and talk about next week's goals. So, Jim, do you have any final questions to ask, or have you gotten, what have you learned from this, right? And then, of course, goals, going around the horn again, and then going back to the Facebook group or going back to Basecamp to remember, okay, well, who's going to be in the hot seat next week? Jim will be the moderator for next week's call, and then now Amy's in the hot seat next week, if that makes sense. So that's really key, and I love what Tim's saying here. Moderating conversations are so key in all settings when the purpose of the time together is sharing and value adding to and for all. Agreed, right? And when I first saw these mastermind groups and they had a moderator, like I initially thought that the moderator was like the leader. But no, remember, it's the Knights of the Round Table. There's no head of the table. It's just one person will take the lead. One call, another person will take the lead, another call. And again, it's for the benefit of the entire group. And it's specifically, definitely a benefit to the person who's in the hot seat, if that makes sense. Now, when it comes to finding people, let's finish off by talking about where to find certain members of your group. Now, in many cases, so let's talk about this, where to find members. And remember, you can either find an existing mastermind. I can't spell right now. You can find an existing mastermind, or you can start your own. The one that I've been a part of for 10 years was one that already existed. I was asked, in fact, to be a part of it. Jamie Masters from Eventual Millionaire asked me to be a part of our group. And initially I said no, because I was never a part of mastermind groups and I didn't understand the value. 6 months go by, she asks me again, pitches it a little bit better, has other group members in there that weren't in there before that I was really interested in. And then I said yes, and we've been together for 10 years. And that was a group that sort of was already formed that I became a part of. And again, that was a free group. There's no payments required other than a consistent showing up every single week. And that's been 10 years. Every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific, I'm with that group. Now, it's not every Monday because there's holidays. We take breaks for those holidays. And, sometimes there'll be an emergency or just I'm unable. I'll be traveling, in which case I just skip that week. The other group I formed formally with Cliff Ravenscraft from podcastanswerman.com and cliffravenscraft.com. And he and I started a group, and it was just us two for a while. And then we invited another person. And then we three invited another person. Now, if you have a group and you want to invite new people, it's very important that every group member be okay with that new member, right? Everybody can suggest and invite people. I would highly recommend that we try to be inclusive and create for diversity as well, because it's important. But in addition to that, if you are going to bring a new member in, everybody has to agree, right? Unanimously. And it should be in a trial period, right? This is often the case, especially if you're going to be going into a group that already exists. Oftentimes there's a trial period. And we've had people come in before for 1 month. They get one hot seat essentially, and we'll just see what the vibe is. And then the group, we know this expectation ahead of time because this person knows that they might not be let in. We just huddle up separately in another call and just talk about how that felt and if there's a good vibe there and if this person would have any value to add and if we could add any value to them. And then we go from there, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's fantastic. So where might you find a group that already exists? We'll start there. You're gonna have to ask around, right? The more and the deeper that you get involved with different communities that are online and offline, the more likely you're gonna find that there's these little masterminds sort of within them. And they might not even be called a mastermind. They might be just called, a group or club or formal, meetup. But typically, mastermind group is the term that's used. And so in person, if possible, is the best place. Obviously, it's not possible right now. You can find and be a part of communities online that do really well. Apologize about that notification. But the biggest sense that you want to get is the vibe from the other people, right? And you want to make sure that you could, get a sense that, okay, this is a place where you will feel comfortable and people will feel comfortable with you. But finding these in person is just going to take some asking around, right? It might be something that you hear and then you get to ask, hey, do you have any open spots in that group? I'd love to be a part of it, and maybe we can do a trial for a week to see if it would be a good fit for both of us. Here is the kind of value that I can add to the group, and I'd love to be a part of that. Remember, what can you do for the group? You want to sell it that way, not the other way around. But starting your own group might be a little bit easier, right? And even just starting, again, with one person, that's really all it takes, and then you can begin to invite people. And the most important thing, and the reason why I love conferences, is because you get to fast forward that relationship building when you're in person. It's very hard to get a sense of true, honest vibe online. Still possible, obviously, especially if you're able to connect online in a face-to-face sort of fashion, but there's nothing like in person. So once we get to go meet each other again, if you come to FlynnCon next year or you go to another conference, try to see how you might find people who you really vibe with, and you want to essentially continue that conversation outside of that conference or outside of that group, right? A lot of times you meet and you hook up with people and you have dinner with them, you have coffee with them, what have you at these conferences, and then you go home and it's like nothing has changed. Versus, hey, I had a really good time getting to know you here. Might we be able to establish some sort of formal sort of meetup every single week, mastermind group where we can stay connected in between conferences, right? That's really key. In chat, now would be the time to ask questions. If you have a question about mastermind groups, type in the word question followed by, in all caps if you can, followed by your question. The most important thing with these groups, however, is to know that they're going to evolve and change over time, and to make sure that we all come with open-mindedness into them, not just in relation to the people who are there, but in the structure and the format and just the vibe and how it's going to be over time. The most important thing is that it's a safe place for people to be honest with each other and to receive that honesty. It is absolutely valuable feedback that you can get back and that you should be giving to others too. And the more value that you can offer to others, I mean, you'll see it directly, the more value that you definitely get back, if that makes sense. I wouldn't want to be a member of any group that would have me as a member. Groucho Marx. Still, I do wonder about the exclusive aspect of screening members, as necessary as it may be. That makes sense. There's a lot to unpack there. Chris says, what is a time you felt most challenged with your mastermind group? How did you handle the situation? I mean, every call is a challenge that I'm in a hot seat. I think one of the big challenges was there was a particular, this one that's coming to mind, Chris. Thank you for asking this question. I am in a group where there was actually a disagreement with one of the group members between myself and the group member, because we were actually creating products that were very similar to each other. And there was a disagreement. And that was very uncomfortable because I don't like upsetting people. I don't like making other people upset. But at the same time, I knew what I was doing was right and would be of most benefit to my audience. So one of the hot seat calls was essentially a call that was sort of an understanding between both parties, how we could both empathize with each other more. And that was uncomfortable, but it was very important to do because it allowed me to help me even differentiate my product even more in a way where this person, yes, felt a little bit more comfortable because it wasn't, a very similar product, but more than that, it helped it differentiate itself from the audience, meaning the audience would know, whoa, this is the Pat Flynn style way of doing it, right? So I'm not going to get into details about that, but I don't like making people upset. I'm a people pleaser. It's gotten me in trouble at times because I try to say yes to everything, and I've learned not to do that now. But especially when I care so much about people, and especially people in my mastermind group. Remember, I have them at very high levels, and they're right up there with my family. It's always uncomfortable, but these are the kinds of uncomfortable conversations that have to happen in order for growth to happen, right? If that makes sense. Question from Sarah. How do you screen for members while still recognizing unconscious bias around diversity? I mean, that's a great question, Sarah. I think that the idea is, hey, let's make sure we're not leaving out any parties who could potentially add value here in the group. And just, you don't want to necessarily either hire or include people just because they're a certain way. That almost is sort of a slap back, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's the right term, but doing it just for that reason alone. But I think that in the decision-making process, making sure that you're inclusive with who you are looking at and who else may have to provide value for you, who you wouldn't have originally thought, that's where growth happens, right? If that makes sense. Does that make sense? Sean says, if you had to lead a group and a member is slacking or not adding value, how might you address it? If I was leading a group or a part of a group and, it was just apparent that a person was sort of slacking, like this is where honesty comes into play. And it's in their hot seat that I would say, hey, I just want to be honest with you. And I'm just going to use your name, Sean, because it's your name, but I'm not saying this is you, obviously. But Sean, over the last couple of weeks, I've noticed that you just haven't really been contributing as much as you used to. Like, is everything okay? It's valuable to have you in here when you show up, but you just haven't been showing up lately. How can we fix this? Or is something going on that you want to talk about, right? So I sort of like back my way into that by having it be like, hey, you know what? I care about you. Is something going on? Versus, hey, man, you have been slacking. You haven't been contributing anything. You gotta step it up or you're out, right? That's a little bit more aggressive. Now, obviously, if a person likes to receive information in that way and you know that about them, well, then call them out, right? If that makes sense. Question from FPS Sam. When you're in the hot seat, what's your responsibility? I just started Inner Circle last week and have 5 people trying to make it as valuable as possible. So this is a great question. So your responsibility is to, number one, know the topic ahead of time about what you want to talk about and what you want to come away with. But you're also responsible for asking the right questions too, right? So yes, the group will likely ask you questions to uncover and go deeper with certain things. And I'm going to take 1 or 2 more questions after this. And thank you all so much for the feedback and for the thumbs up and everything. I appreciate you guys. And I hope this was helpful. This was actually a request from somebody in SPI Pro to talk about this today, and I'm thankful for that. And to be able to share this with everybody is great. And if you haven't seen SPI Pro, smartpassiveincome.com/pro, check it out. It's our membership platform within SPI to help those who have gotten started with their business find other like-minded people to be able to share and provide feedback similar to a mastermind setting, but more in a group fashion online. And we do challenges. We have a book club and other things that keep us sort of on point throughout the month. And it's brand new. Check it out. smartpassiveincome.com/pro. Anyway, to answer this question, you need to know what you want to get out of the call, right? Ultimately where you want to end up, and ask questions to help yourself get there, right? And it takes some time. It takes some training to be able to ask the right questions to receive the right feedback. But you're just as responsible for asking questions as much as your group is asking you questions, so that you can get to that ultimate sort of endpoint or understanding or direction coming out of that call. Question, is there any SPI mastermind? How can be a part of it? I'm from India. Thank you, Tarun. We do have an SPI mastermind group. It's called the SPI Accelerator Program. There are currently 10 members in there, and this is a sort of hybrid of coaching / masterminding, because there is group mastermind type stuff, and we meet bi-weekly. However, there is also individual group coaching as well on top of that, and that's the SPI Accelerator Program. It's closed right now. It's a year-long program, and that is indeed a paid program that I've created. Keisha says, have you had the situation should a person want a good personality fit for the rest of the group members? How did you handle it? Have you had the situation should a person want a good personality fit for the rest of the group members? Keisha, can you ask that question again? We have a little bit of time. If you can get it in on time, I can probably answer that for you. Can do math. I just didn't understand it. I'm sorry. Can do math says, how do you feel with members who don't understand the difference between not knowing what they're talking about and being qualified to give a certain piece of advice? This is a great question. The ability, like, you don't want to have people who just are kind of not really, they're providing surface level value, right? But it's not really the value that you need. And this is your responsibility as a person in the hot seat. If you're receiving something and it's not quite helpful, you let them know. You can even say, hey, thank you for that, but can you go a little bit deeper, because this is actually what I'm struggling with, and I know that already, but in your experience, if you have any knowledge, how can you help me with this instead, right? So it's going to be about you kind of, even though you're not the moderator when you're in the hot seat, you still have to take the lead on what's best for you, right? And you shouldn't be afraid of asking for additional help and clarification questions. What would be the sweet spot for how often meetings should happen? I prefer the once a week, and for 1 hour each time. It just is a time in my calendar I can block off. It's consistent. I can honor that, and the rest of the group can honor it. Happens online, so it's just that 1 hour. There's no travel, and also you're able to get into the hot seat in rotation sort of every single month, if that makes sense. All right. Yo, Michelle, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate you. That's super generous of you. I appreciate that. And my mastermind call starts right now, but I'm going to finish off with this question from Keisha. Thanks for getting it in on time. I'll finish with this, and then I got to head out to my mastermind group. And they know I'm a little bit late on Wednesdays because I have this live stream, so it's okay. And again, I'm just honest and upfront with them about that. But anyway, this is great, y'all. Thank you so much. Let me know in the chat what your biggest takeaway here is. And if you are going to be starting or finding a group of your own, or if you happen to be in one already, just I want to know where you're at with these. And perhaps if you have any other value to share to the rest of the group here, even on the replay, what other tips and other things have you picked up from elsewhere that can be contributed to the rest of the group here as we dive a little bit more into mastermind groups too. But to answer Keisha's question, have you had the situation where a personality wasn't a good fit? Yes, absolutely. And it's one of those ones where, because there's that understanding up front that, hey, we're going to see if this is a good fit, and it may or may not be, and it's not any offense to you or your ability or knowledge, just the vibe of the group is really important. And, there's a potential for you to not fit in, and if that's the case, then, we'll just, formally say our goodbyes, but we'll remain friends, and that's cool, right? And so, yeah, it's actually happened where one of my groups, we had a person in who on the surface would seemingly be like a great addition, and he was very, very well known in the industry that some of these other people were a part of, and it made sense on paper. But when he came in, it just, the way that the interactions happen, and this person just wasn't ready to open up a little bit more like the rest of us. It just was not a good fit personality-wise. And then, of course, after that sort of 2-week trial period, we let this person know, it's just, hey, this is not going to be a good fit. No offense, no worries, I hope. And, we all left amicably. Is that the right word? We all left on good terms. So yeah, it's definitely happened before for sure. How do you add new members? Yep. If we feel like we could use another one, the new members, we each come up with candidates and we each vote and we talk and we discuss it. And every group member has to vote yes in order for a person to come in and then have one of those trial periods. But anyway, chat, thank you so much. This was a great session. I hope this is valuable to you, and I look forward to seeing how a mastermind group becomes a part of your future, if not already. But hey, I gotta head out. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. That accountability, that honesty, that feedback is so key. And the more you offer value to others in this way, the more you're gonna get back. And hopefully by me adding value to you here now for 125 days straight, you can hook me up back with at least a thumbs up before you go. And of course, showing up again tomorrow, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, starting at our regular time, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, patflynn.com/the income stream. We're going to talk about another topic tomorrow. It's going to help you grow and scale your business and improve your life. So make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, Team Flynn for the win. Take care. Love y'all.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream, all while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
Hey, all, great session today. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. This was super fun, and I look forward to connecting with you tomorrow. We'll talk about another topic. Just stay safe, stay well, stay happy. Peace out. See you later.
Bruh.